I'm Jenice Armstrong. Finding love can be challenging during the best of circumstances. Imagine trying to do it during a pandemic. Dating during COVID has opened up a whole new world with a whole new list of do's and don'ts. Here to help us explore what these days are like are some of Philadelphia's most eligible singles. First off, we have actor, model, reality TV star, and all-around nice guy, Kevin Kreider.
Hi, Jenice.
Hey, Kevin. So glad you could join us. Yeah. We also have Mindie Barnett. She's the president of MB and Associates PR. She's also the host of the podcast, The Race for the Ring. Welcome, Mindie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Finally, we have serial entrepreneur, former Daily News sexy single, and gal around town, the one and only Angelita Byrd.
Hi. How's everybody?
We're good. We also will be joined today by relationship expert, Dr. Jaime Zuckerman. Hi, Dr. Zuckerman. Welcome.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. If at any time during the discussion, you'll have an opportunity to submit questions. Go to the comment section at the bottom of this page. Now, if you're watching on one of the social media platforms, join us for the Q&A at inquirer.com/pandemicdatinglive in order to submit your questions. Got it? So let's go ahead and get started. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been in the news lately because of concerns over possible side effects. That brings me to my first question. Is it a deal breaker if someone you're interested in dating refuses to be vaccinated?
Good question. For me, I think it would be. I think right now, because it's still coming out and not.
Uh-oh. I think we just lost your audio. We'll come back, Mindie. We'll come back. How about you, Angelita Byrd? What do you think? Would that be a deal breaker for you?
My question is an easy answer. That question, is an easy answer. And that answer will be no. And the reason being is because I am not sold on being vaccinated myself, to be perfectly honest with you. So, but I just believe that it's a choice. And everybody has a choice whether they want to do it or not, but that will not deter anything to do with who I am with and who I'm not with.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I kind of want to. I don't really care if somebody is or isn't. It's their freedom of choice too. For me, I'm doing it so I can see my family. Like I just was in Philadelphia yesterday, and because I'm vaccinated, and so is my parents. I just feel so comfortable to actually hug them. And I feel like myself. So for me, it makes me feel better. For them, I mean, like, it's up to them. I mean, they can do whatever they want. So I'm totally cool with it.
Okay. So feel free to jump in at any time. You back with us, Mindie?
I do. I think like the powers that be just heard me talking and shut me right up. But anyway, it's sort of like a date. But that said, for me, I would be a deal breaker. Let me just explain why. I'm not in a relationship right now. I'm dating a bunch of people. Nobody's significant, right? If I was in a relationship or had significant feelings already established for another person and they didn't want to get vaccinated, that would not be. But because it's new right now, I'm just being very cautious because, like Kevin shared, I have elderly parents. They probably wouldn't be pleased that I just called them that, but they are. They're in their 70s. And I have young children who aren't eligible to get vaccinated, and I've been, but I just wouldn't want to maybe be the carrier of a virus, or if I was intimate with someone, they became part of my family, them coming in and possibly bringing germs like that into the house or something of that nature. So yeah, probably would be, at least right now. But that's just my standpoint.
That's interesting. So we got one yes, one no, and one in between. Dr. Zuckerman, what do you make of all that?
So this is something that is a very personal preference. And I don't think it's so much a matter of what's right and what's wrong in this. It's if two people have the same views on this, then it's not a deal breaker. And it really is that simple. I don't think it's something that's a deal breaker that should be negotiated. There's some negotiable, things that in relationships that are negotiable. I don't think this is one of them. I think it's a matter of preference. And if you line up in your preferences for this, then that's great.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend who, when his dates come over, he stops her at the door, he takes her temperature, he sprays her down with Lysol before he lets her into his house. This is a true story. True story. He's got right at the door, a little station set up. Have you run into anything crazy like this out on the dating scene?
No, I probably wouldn't date someone like that.
No, I wouldn't want to date anyone like that either. No.
You wouldn't submit to the Lysol spray down?
No, I'd be like, I'm checking myself right out. Thank you so much. No.
Okay.
Most I had was somebody said like, "Hey, can I see that you are negative on COVID testing?" But that's pretty much it. Everything else, the Lysol.
True story. True story. So, what about the mask thing? What if you're going to go on a date with someone and they show up without a mask? Does that matter?
Okay, so I actually have an anecdote to share. So I did go on a date in December, I feel like it was, sort of right when we were coming out of the height of the second wave that we all saw after the holidays, the Thanksgiving, etc. And the guy showed up. We were eating outdoors because that was the only place you could eat in Philadelphia. And we were at Park restaurant on Rittenhouse Square, and he showed up without a mask, and I had a mask, and everybody had a mask on, and I said, "Where's your mask?" But it really it was a first date, so that was obviously a poor impression, to say the least. But it let me to believe that he probably wasn't overly careful if he didn't think he needed to be wearing a mask. So at any rate, I checked us in because he wasn't even able to enter the entranceway, obviously, without a mask. He started putting his sweatshirt like over his face, like, I please don't do that. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, no, just wait outside on the curb. So I checked us in, and then we got seated, and then he had to use the restroom, and of course he didn't have a mask, and he started to do that again with the sweatshirt. I said, you can't go. I was like, you can't go in. Not only was it inappropriate, I didn't want him to, it was rude to other people, that like the workers and stuff. So I gave him my mask, but it was like a very girly looking mask. It was like a fabric mask. It wasn't like that, like unisex blue or black, and it had like pink hearts all over it. And he rocked it, and he went in with the mask, and I was like, oh my God, yeah. So.
Did you ever go out with him again?
I did, but not very long.
I think that was the
he redeemed himself from that, and then he had other flaws. So yeah, he got the.
Yeah. That first date was the sign right there, Mindie. Not to go again.
I know. It's like, you're a grown man. Like, you're not like my 9-year-old son. Like, what the heck are you doing? Like,
yeah. It's kind of a regional thing, like where you are. Like, Angelita, you just came back from someplace where everybody wasn't wearing masks.
Well, yeah, and actually I can answer your question, because for me, yes, I do wear a mask, and I would like to hopefully believe that the person that I'm with would wear a mask too. But it honestly really depends on where we are, because when I'm outdoors and doing outdoor things, honestly, I don't always have I always have my mask. Please forgive me. I always have a mask no matter where I go. However, I don't always wear it where I am, because at the end of the day, we're here to socially distance. And when you're outdoors, especially when you're in a wide open space, you're not around a whole lot of people. You don't necessarily, for me, my personal thoughts is that I don't necessarily need to wear a mask if there's nobody else around me or nobody within 6 feet. And if I'm with someone, ideally, again, kind of like what Mindie said, if you're in a relationship with someone, that's one thing. And it's like, okay, well, we already kind of know how we're living our lifestyle. So if we're out and about and we're together, no, we don't necessarily wear a mask. However, always indoors. That's without a doubt. But then, if it's someone you don't know, yeah, get your mask. Okay, especially if you want to come up close to me, have a conversation, and we don't even know each other, and I have no idea if you washed your hands or anything for that matter. So yes, you cannot put a sweatshirt over your face, my friend. Okay.
No.
Not cool. Not cool.
Can I
Not
say one more tidbit? This is like a funny little story. I promise I won't take over this convo, but this is just too funny. So another time in New York, because I go to New York sometimes as well. I was on a date with a doctor who I don't even know why I brought that up, that he was a doctor, but I was not attracted to this guy. Like, I had no desire to even have the date once I sat down for the date. But the mask was a redeeming quality. And for all of the people watching, if you don't want to give them, you feel like that, do I have to kiss them, or just put on the mask? It was
That's a good double mask. And then put the face shield down, then he'll know. He's not feeling
and put on your sweatshirt.
Put the sweatshirt on. What's it like out in California with the mask thing and dating?
Well, I mean, it's funny you were saying this, because I'm thinking to myself, all throughout 2020 and 2021, like, everybody's been really respectful over here wearing a mask. So I don't see a difficult dating choice of like, oh, you're not wearing a mask, like we can't date. I think in 2021, it's okay, just because I'm like, I know a lot more people are vaccinated. But like in 2020, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's like, it's just, I consider myself like somebody who's just like a free thought person. I'm like, man, I'm already here in front of this person. If I'm going to get it, I probably am going to get it at this point now anyway. And then it's like, well, if I just really don't vibe with the person right away, then I'll just like leave. But I mean, I vibed with every single date that I came in touch with, because I'm like, if I'm going to put myself in risk with that, I better vibe with them first, you know?
Yeah, we're going to have fun.
I don't vibe with you and then leave, you know, like that's just not cool. Like, yeah.
Well, you know, what's funny is that, you know, Mindie, I mean, what you said, and you was like, it doesn't really matter, but I've been dating a doctor. So, you know, during COVID, and then like what Kevin is saying, well, if I'm going to get it, I already have it. But for some strange reason, while dating a doctor during COVID, I just felt like, well, at least I got somebody to, you know, take care of me if I got sick, right? So that was kind of a little bit my thought process, which is a little strange, I know, because it doesn't matter. I mean, if you get it, and unfortunately, we do have to take this thing very, very seriously. And we're not trying to make light of COVID, anyone that's listening, because unfortunately, I've lost some dear friends of mine during this pandemic. So I'm very serious about it. It's just, again, I do believe it's a personal choice in your matter, but still just be smart about it when you're out here dating, especially if you're dating multiple people.
Yeah.
Dr. Zuckerman, I was wondering, what do you think about going through someone's Instagram and sort of seeing how they're living and then making judgments about them in terms of dating? Like if that person's out and about on the scene, going to Atlanta every weekend, whatever, is it stalkerish to make a judgment on someone who you might date in that situation? Or should you just sort of meet him and hear him out? Because the person you see on Instagram isn't always the person in reality. So I was just wondering, what do you think? Should you do that to see how people are living?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I think given the climate right now, and you know, just the potential risks that are out there, and the anxiety that so many people have, for the simple reason that nobody knows, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? Some states you don't have to wear a mask, some places you do. So I think it's difficult to judge based on pictures. You don't know where they are. You don't know who they're with. It could be family members that they're with. They could be outside, but it looks indoors. I mean, there's so many variables with that. So I think you have to be really careful, you know, as we all know in general, aside from COVID, we have to be really careful when we judge somebody from Instagram or from social media in general, because, you know, what people put up there is not always, most of the time, not always what is reality. But I think in this case, I wouldn't make too much of a judgment unless you see something that is so glaring that there's no other possibility for it. And if you're somebody who will only date somebody who wears a mask, who is very, very cautious, then in that situation, I think it's okay. If you see somebody out in a club, and you know, or they're out in the middle of a concert, not that there's concerts right now, but if there were, that's a little bit different. But I think just from a picture, I really don't think that we can judge.
I was to say, doctor, I think that's why you look at their Instagram stories, not just their photos.
True.
I had this one girl who had to meet up, and she I was like, there's no friggin' way we're meeting up. Like every single day you're at a club or a bar. And
That's what I would judge. That's when I would judge. Yeah.
Like, oh, I already had it. Like it was all the way back in January. And I'm just like, oh, like I still don't think I want to deal with that.
Yeah.
But
no, that's a very valid point. I would judge in that case. Yes, I would not meet up with them either.
Well, you know what? I have something to say about this because for me personally, like I cannot judge a person by their social media. And I don't think that you can really judge someone. You don't know someone till you know someone. You know what I mean? And you don't know someone until you get to know them. So if someone was to go to my social media, they would think that I am extremely extroverted. They would think I'm extremely social with everyone. They would think that, you know, does this girl ever like sit still? Because yes, I mean, I travel and I still travel during COVID. I actually double mask up on the plane. Okay. And, but however you know, I just think that when you go on people's social media, I think for me personally, that's just to see how they look, you know, and that's the first initial attraction to anyone, right? Is how they look. But from there, I want to get into your mind. I want to see what your mindset is. So now I'm not going to know that just by reading your fabulous stories on social media, Facebook or anything like that. I'm going to only know that when we have a conversation.
Well, so first of all, I would say you're making a judgment call if you want to meet up with this person based off your own safety. I think that's different than judging somebody, you know? That's what I do. I'd make a judgment call if I actually want to meet this person to see if it's like safe or if it's like a little bit reckless. Second of all, if you're going to judge people by like their photos and stuff like that, come on, like everything's filtered or like their best angles and stuff. Like I would even argue to say like, if I made judgment calls on people's social media, I'm usually out for a big mistake because it's like, the girls never look like their photos ever. Like,
wait a minute, Kevin. I actually look like my photos and better. Okay, I've been told I look like my photos and better, Kevin. All right.
I'm just saying. I'm just being very flat honest. Like, I mean, I do modeling and stuff. I know I don't look like my photos all the time and stuff. So you
you do. Yeah, you do.
You do, Kevin.
You always look gorgeous. Yes.
But it's just that's what I just think that one of the things about just like the dating scene and the pandemic, I think it made it easier for me because it's like, you know, you do a quick message, you do a FaceTime or Zoom, you know, you skip the coffee and you skip the line and you just go right on Zoom and see if you vibe with somebody. And then I think it just saves so much time. Like I remember I had like 5 Zoom dates in one day. It was awesome. I couldn't do that in like real life.
Oh God, that sounds like a nightmare.
I know, like I don't know, I've never done that.
Oh God,
I didn't meet up with any of them.
No, it's good though, because you're right. It actually does kind of spare you the time of wasting a night or wasting an hour commuting to the place and sitting there and having to have I mean, I had a dinner date with somebody on a Saturday night, and I wanted to like die like the second. I know I sound so mean. I actually do have fun on dates, and I actually do like some of the guys I go out with. I'm just sharing these stories because they're better. They're funnier. But he was a nice guy and all. I knew the minute we sat down, he was just, I don't know, a little quirky say. But either way, he's a nice person. But I felt like that would have been appropriate Zoom date because I would have avoided having to get dressed, get a blowout, go there, like whatever, you know.
You got a blowout too?
Oh, I was.
What a waste! I mean, what a waste!
I don't do online dating. I've tried it. I don't do it anymore. I'm just like, that's just not my thing. But I will say this, that all it takes is one conversation, and I know if I want to meet you or not. So, you know, it only takes probably the first 5 minutes, if that, into the conversation, if I even want to know you anymore. So that's just me. I'm very quick with what I know I like. So, you know.
Okay, so
how do you meet them? How does Angelita meet the people?
If you're I didn't hear that one, Mindie. We're going to take this back to Jenice Armstrong.
You don't want to answer that question. How do you meet these people who you end up going out with? That's what you was asking.
Oh, well, you know what? At the end of the day, either it's someone that I may have known or I may have met them through a social interaction. And, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, I must admit, I'm a relationship girl, so I don't really I don't know how to date multiple people. I wish I knew how, but I just don't. So I tend to meet someone, next thing you know, I'm in a relationship. So, you know, and that's how it always happens with me, which is probably not a good thing. So, you know,
awesome.
well, it could be for some and it could be for not others, because at the end of the day, if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, you know, you're like, okay, well, maybe I should have took my time as opposed to jumping right into a relationship with someone, as opposed to just meeting multiple people, getting to know, and in a sense, and seeing what's the best, you know, situation for me, you know. So you don't know, again, you don't know a person until you get to know someone, and you either end up in a relationship and it works, or you end up in a relationship and it doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm. So what do we decide as far as Zoom dating? Are we for it? Let's go like this. Can you say it up or down? I
Are
would
we
think
for
this.
dating? Is that what you're asking?
Zoom dating. Dr. Zuckerman, what do you think?
I think I'm married, so I'm not Zoom dating, but of my patients that have and my friends that have, I think it's excellent. And I think it's exactly what people are saying. It's almost like a weeding out process that, you know, I mean, Mindie, I know you were joking, but really you're not. I mean, it saves so much time and energy and money and outfits, you know,
And blowouts?
and blowouts. And so I think it's great. I think people got creative, because what else were you going to do? We're not expected to just by ourselves. You know, we're creature, you know, we like connecting with people. So we got creative. And I think, and I'm not so sure that when this is over, that'll go away so fast. I think it'll be interesting to see, because I have a feeling Zoom dating's not going away that quickly.
I agree.
Here's a question from someone. Oh, did you want to say something, Kevin? Sorry.
I'm going to say, for me, it's not going away, because I'm like, dude, I think about those 5 girls that I went on a Zoom date with, and I'm like, if I would have actually met them in person, I would have killed myself. You know, like, not really, but I'm just saying, like, it would have been like, I feel like I want to just leave or fall out of my skin. But the thing is, though, now I'm more hesitant if, for instance, if I meet a girl online or something, and she doesn't want to even have a phone conversation, you know, or something, or like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable being in front of camera. It's like, well, what are you so uncomfortable with? You're afraid that you don't look like your photos or something like that, or whatever, or you say something stupid, then it's like, it sets precedence of like what's going to happen in the future. So I probably won't go on another date with somebody unless we do a Zoom or a FaceTime or something.
That's smart. Can I ask Kevin a question?
Sure,
so when you do your Zoom date, Kevin, do you do it over with wine or coffee? Like, how long is it? It's just like sort of like small talk kind of Zoom date, just to sort of feel them out and see if it's just any kind of chemistry. Okay, I've never done one, so I'm asking. But they sound great. Okay.
I always just say, like, before COVID, I was like, hey, let's just go out for coffee sometime. We can really just chat. And plus, by the way, if the conversation sucks, the coffee's good still, right? Now it's like, if I do Zoom, it's more like, let's do a Zoom coffee date. But like, half the time you're not having coffee, because it gives you like 3 p.m. I'm like, it's too late for coffee. I'm going to stay up all night. Or if it's like, they can have wine if they want to. I actually don't drink, so they can drink wine if they want to. But I prefer if they don't do that, just because I'm like, that way I don't have to stick around until I finish the bottle. It's just like I could just leave in 15 minutes if it's just a shitty conversation or crappy conversation. I don't know if I can say that. If it's a crappy conversation. So that way I think it's just, you just set it up as like, hey, we're going out for a coffee Zoom date. Oh, cute. I love coffee. Me too.
Low stakes.
Low stakes, yeah.
Okay, here's a question from one of our viewers. Has anyone on the panel gotten COVID?
No.
I honestly, I think I've had it, but this was before we knew what it was. So I do believe, because I had like every symptom you can imagine under the sun back in January of soon as the new year hit, but I really don't know if I actually had it, but I believe I did.
Doctor, can't she check to see if she has the antibodies?
You know what? I asked my doctor that, and they said that they weren't doing that at the time. So, I think they stopped or something of that nature. But however, I just personally believe, because I rarely get sick. And when I did, I even said to myself, I said, is there like some kind of super bug going around? Because I don't get sick like that. And I was sick for almost 2 weeks, literally, with like every symptom that they talked about, from the shortness of breath, everything. And I just kind of rotted it out. And then I just thought I had the flu. But now when all this came out, I'm like, wow, I may have very well had COVID.
Yeah, but that was before people were doing the antibody testing and all, right?
Before they even spoke about it, you know? So yeah.
I had something similar to you, Angelita. I mean, maybe it wasn't COVID. It was, I would say, about 2 months before it first came out, when it wasn't here yet. I have never been so sick. The body aches, the chills. I didn't have anything respiratory, but I ended up in the emergency room. And for me to end up in the emergency room for body aches that just wouldn't happen. And it was so bad. It knocked me out, I'd say, for a good 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I learned.
Who knows?
Actually, speaking to the doctor that I was dating, he said you very well probably had COVID, because he's been working with COVID patients, and he said this thing been around longer than what people know. And I said, well, yeah, and he believes he had it too. So I think a lot of people haven't, just didn't know. They just thought that they either had pneumonia or the flu.
Yeah.
I think I had it too. I don't know though. Same kind of situation. I'll spare everybody with my symptoms, but I did have the respiratory stuff.
I had it too.
But it was in January, and I did.
I once ate too much and couldn't breathe. Like I might have.
No, I was quite sick.
So we all think.
But I got tested for the flu.
No, I don't think I had it. I'm sorry.
He's making fun of us.
Maybe you're the only one who's not a hypochondriac. I don't know.
No, I mean, like, look, there are times where I thought maybe I was going to have it. Because, like I told you, I've had this nagging dry cough for about 2.5 months or something. Thought I had it. I've been getting tested, never had it. But it's just like, I think you've got to really find out if you have it. Like, I think it's kind of weird saying, "Well, I thought I had it because my chest really hurt."
Well, it's before. This before they were testing and stuff.
Yeah, this
was even technically here. I got tested for the antibodies. Yeah, I got tested for the antibodies, and I got tested for them. But they say that after 6 months, they're no longer in your system.
Right.
So I had my COVID-esque virus in January of 2020. Right. And I was very, very sick, and I was, whatever. Anyway, I got tested for the antibodies in the summer, like in August, when they were more available, I guess, and so forth. And they said we were negative, but they also said they may have been no longer there, because they only last like 3 to 6 months at the most.
All right, we can talk about dating.
Let's go back to dating. Okay, Dr. Zuckerman, here's another question from a viewer who asks, what issues have you been seeing this year as they relate to love? What kind of issues are your patients coming in and talking about?
Yeah, so I'm seeing 2 main things. First is people getting really close really fast because your socialization is very limited. A lot of people are going to each other's houses or apartments, whereas like on date number 1, whereas before that wouldn't necessarily happen right away. There was just nowhere to go. So things either happened really fast or the opposite occurred. It kind of just, they had a Zoom, usually it was some sort of Zoom or phone conversation, and then it just died because there's nowhere for the relationship to manifest or grow. So it was kind of this weird dichotomy. I didn't really see anyone have this kind of what we would consider whatever normal, regular kind of course of dating. Really either one or the other. I saw in the beginning a lot of breakups that happened early on because people, let's say, had been together for maybe a month, to at that weird stage where you're not exclusive yet, but you've been on too many dates where that weird limbo area. And a lot of breakups happened then because the ability to see each other was kind of cut short. So I saw that as well.
I don't see these as problems though. Like, for instance, like you're saying, oh, they have to come over to your house and like, it moves really fast. I'm like, okay, cut all the BS down. Like, you're coming to my home, you're seeing how I live. I'm coming to your home, seeing how you live. We're trying to figure out if we know each other and like each other well enough to continue. It's like, you cut through like months of courting and just like getting right to, do we like each other and will it continue? So I felt like I saved a lot of time because I got to know a lot of people very quickly, very fast. Not like how people like to do it. It's like, oh, I'm afraid for them to get to know me. It's like, well, no, you get to see them and see the person right away. Like I had this one girl, she annoyed the piss out of me because it's like she would show up an hour and a half, 2 hours late after like we set up the time, and I'm like, yo, I know it's like COVID and stuff, but like I'm still busy. I think you should respect people's times.
Yeah.
There's no traffic in LA either, by the way, at that time, and she's 2 hours late multiple times. I'm like, I got to know you very fast. Yes, we had fun and it was nice getting to know you, but like, bye. Like next person, you know, like I don't think it's a bad thing. Plus, like I've seen and heard so many relationships where it's like they were on the rocks anyway, so it kind of just brought it out. Like I know plenty of good relationships that were always good. It just got better. So I think maybe this period of time really brought out, like if it was a bad relationship, it really brought it out more. And if it was good, it stayed good. Like I know plenty of people who had really good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
that's very
Dr.
true.
Zuckerman.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I
Dr.
was going to
Zuckerman,
say that's
I am that. That's why I was going like this. I am that. The fast one. Not saying I'm fast, but always like I said, I end up in a relationship because honestly, date 1 through 3. Someone's asking me to marry them. Like that's how fast it goes. Like it's like, wait a minute, how did I get here? I'm already married, But it just seems like it just happened so fast. But honestly, I must say, this whole entire lockdown, I have been having a lot of fun. I cannot lie. I've had a lot of fun. I've been on amazing fun like adventures and dates. And honestly, I cannot say that this has really stopped me from really enjoying myself with someone, because there's so much to do outside of being at someone's house. Really, it just really is. And you just got to get creative. And I'm an outdoor adventurous person. So I did a lot of hiking, different road trips to different places, go sit out at lakes, in parks. I mean, just things outdoor, anything outdoor is just always easy and fun. And especially like, for people who are dating multiple people, hey, meet me at the park. Let's have a picnic outside, or let's go hiking, let's go for a long walk. I mean, those are the things that I was doing, the entire time we've been on lockdown, honestly. And that's because that's what I enjoy to do. Even if this wasn't a pandemic, this is what I would want to do with someone on a date. I'm a hiker. I love to hike. Let's go hiking. It can't be just, oh, let's go sit at a restaurant and talk about you and talk about me. We can get to know each other by the things that we like to do. And that's what I prefer.
I think that I agree with you. And I think that especially when a lot of the restaurants were all takeout and things like that, and there really wasn't a lot of options. In the beginning of the lockdown, I was in a relationship. I mean, a very early relationship. We had met right before the lockdown. And, like everybody's been saying, same with me, it progressed very quickly. By date 2, he was coming to my house. And I was like, well, you're getting off easy. We're ordering in. I'm like, and I'm like, well, and then I made a joke like a little later on. I'm like, well, it's only gonna get better because you're seeing me at my worst, and like my sweats every day, like things like that. And unfortunately, it didn't last. But that's another story. But I think that once I was going out and doing more too, we went golfing and things like that. We were just doing things outdoors to what Angelita was saying, because you sort of had to be somewhat creative, and then the weather was turning better. And I think it's nice because it brings out sort of I feel like this situation and a lot of different parts of our lives, it really brings us to the core of what we should be appreciating anyway. And doesn't matter if the guy or you're going out to this expensive dinner or you're going to some fancy place for drinks. It's just really about the two of you. So I think that it just allowed us to, when that was all taken off the table, to really get to know somebody for who they are as a person and not what they can, bring to you, if you will, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just a lot of things. And so I just encourage people, get out. I mean, I know that, yes, we're here in the Northeast. It's very difficult to be out. I mean, nobody wants to sit with gloves on eating dinner. We're not in Paris, right? Because, that's what they do at the cafes in Paris. But I guess because I was fortunate, too, to be dating someone that had a home in Florida. So I was kind of going back and forth to Florida, too, and getting out of the winter cold here, which was nice. But still, it's just so much, I think, creative things to do. And again, you can go skiing, right? You know, you got skiing, you can go snowboarding, or whatever the case may be. Me, I'll hike all year round, so it doesn't matter to me how cold it is. So it just really depends on what you into or what the other person is into, and you just kind of find a common ground, I think, of what you both like to do, and be creative with that.
So in the first couple of dates, you would really go skiing or snowboarding with someone?
My first date was hiking. Yes, that's a first date for me. Very much so. My first date cannot be the normal, let's go sit down and have a cup of coffee. We've already established what we like over the phone. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kevin, here's one for you from one of our viewers. It's going to put you on the spot. Do you like dating in Philly better or dating in LA? Careful how you answer that.
I know I'm supposed to say that I prefer dating in Philly just because it's all Philly. But I will say, and I'm just being honest with dating, I struggled really hard with dating in Philly, actually, especially online dating. I didn't really get that many matches when I was on dating apps. I swear. I was like, I literally had to keep swiping right just to get a few matches of people that I wanted. It was insane. So I actually stopped doing online dating and started trying to meet people in person. But I just found like, you know, either I was really attracted to them intellectually, or I wasn't, or I was just attracted to them physically, but I couldn't find both. And then I come back here into LA. It's like there's a lot, you know, like choices, and I felt like I couldn't do online dating, and it's just like there were just so many options out here, and women that were like willing to actually go out on dates with me and stuff. And I found that to be not what I expected. I expected to come out here and like it'd be so superficial that nobody would want to date me. You know, it's like, okay, well, what can you provide for me and all that stuff. And I actually found quite the opposite. Like girls were really wide open and accepting of me out here, more so than a lot of the girls out in Philly, I thought, you know. And I Philly was okay, like I said, but I still struggled. But now that I came out here in LA, it's more like, who do I want to settle down with? And am I, you know, in this point in my career, my life, like, do I want to right now, you know? Like I'd really have to find somebody special who can like add value to my life instead of just take or just not be where I'm at in my life or anything like that. Or, you know, at this point, I even said it publicly at one point. I was like, now it's like, you know, if you know me from like the show I was on, like, do you actually know who I am? And like you have this perception of me, like, so now I have to be careful of that when I date. You know, just recently, 2021, but I found LA dating to be wonderful, actually. And it just, I know that's very disappointing for a lot of people in Philly, but it just, I just found it to be much more accepting. And I know this sounds really weird, but it's like, I just felt like people were, it just like, I just found it to be better. I know that sounds really hard.
People were more
No,
open.
I could book at my next flight out there tomorrow.
Well, you know, I tend to always end up being in a semi-long distance relationship anyhow. So, you know, I don't typically date local, which is interesting enough, even though I live here in Philadelphia. And I think it's because of my lifestyle of traveling all the time. So I always meet people, and that's another place I meet people. I meet people during my travels. So, you know.
So what are the hot websites right now for dating? And I ask, I'm a woman who met her husband on Match.com years ago, back when it was in the dark ages. We've been married 16 years, but I met him on Match.
You did.
Yeah.
About it. So
my mother was so mortified.
If I can jump in first, if that's okay. I love this topic. So we talk about this all the time on the Race for the Ring, my dating podcast. So we just explored, it's coming out tomorrow, Raya. I'm sure Kevin, are you familiar with Raya? Right? No? You're like a celebrity.
What's Raya?
Raya is a VIP, celebrity-driven dating app that you have to be invited to be involved in. So the Israeli woman that I was mentioning, the Israeli rock star that I represent, told me all about it. So she's like the one I interviewed for the podcast. But I have had other clients that were influencers and loose celebrities, if you will, that have used that app also. The other one that myself and some of my guests gravitate toward is Bumble, because that gives the woman the decision to start the conversation. And then the other popular one, I guess is a close second to Bumble amongst myself and some of my peers, is Hinge. But then there's obviously Tinder, and there's J-Swipe, which is the Jewish version of J-Date. Match has an app too. And there's a bunch of others that are all geared towards politics or sexual preference or, different interests and things like that also. But they're the main ones that I can attribute.
Well, Jenice, thank you for turning me on to Match. But again, I'm not an online dater because unfortunately I did have a very unpleasant experience from online dating. So I guess I'm a little jaded, and I know that this is the way people meet people. This is the way, especially during, being in a pandemic. But I guess I'm just going to have to take my chances on somehow bumping into somebody and seeing their eyes or seeing their soul past the mask, right? I don't know. But for me, I think the best way for me probably would to meet like the man of my dreams would probably have to be like a matchmaker or something. So, but online dating, I don't have any recommendations. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Zuckerman, do you want to jump in? Do you have any suggestions for your clients when they come in and they want to know, like, how can I meet somebody? What do you tell them?
It depends, it depends on their age. It depends on where they're at in life. Is it have they been divorced? Do they have children? And I mean, I'm a firm believer in online dating. I think, I kind of take the approach with them as why not? Why wouldn't you? And to be honest, if it's that they had bad experiences with it, like you had said, there was bad experiences that you had, just encourage them to try it again. Do I think it's necessary? You're going to end up no, of course not. But I think that, listen, it's great when you have people that can introduce you to other people and meet through other colleagues or other friends. But again, during quarantine, during a lockdown, during a pandemic, that's a little bit more limited. People probably aren't traveling as much as they would be, so I think online dating during this is kind of a no-brainer. If people ask me suggestions, that's usually my go-to response for them. And again, why not? What have you got to lose? Nothing.
Mm-hmm. I honestly think it's great for other people, and I'm not, and I have tried it again. I did. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a one-time deal for me where I'm like, oh no. I did. I tried it again. It's just not for me. Mm-hmm. Again, just like your preference, with who you date. But for me, it's just not for me. But there might be somebody here watching that could be the person who loves to hike and want to travel the world, right? I don't know. So if you are, hey, you know how to reach me through Jenice Armstrong in the Philadelphia Inquirer.
But you're already engaged, Angelita. You already got the ring.
Where? No, it's not there.
Ain't no ring. Yeah, or they can follow you. You're pretty easy to find on Instagram, right?
I am. Anyone can find me at Miss MISS Lady LADY. My last name Bird BYRD speaks. So it's Miss Lady Bird Speaks on Instagram, but don't judge me from go to my Instagram, okay?
Some of us have been vaccinated. We're starting to ease back out. Can you get some advice to people who might be watching from home and they're wondering, how do I get, I've been home for a year. I want to get back in the game. I've been vaccinated. What advice do you guys have for people who might be watching about getting back into the dating scene?
I'll give the psychological side of things for this. So I caution people, take it slow, right? We've kind of been out of sorts for a while now, over a year. Don't rush into things. People are lonely, maybe people feel disconnected, so we may have this urge to just jump into something that maybe we wouldn't otherwise jump into. Be cautious, take time to reconnect. It's normal to feel lonely, but you don't want to get into something because you feel lonely. Also very normal coming out of something like this for people to have a lot of anxiety. Even though it's a great thing that we're getting back out there, there's also a tremendous amount of anxiety associated with that because we've been away from people for so long. So it's normal to feel anxious. Don't think you shouldn't be going out on dates just because you feel anxious. Nothing's wrong with you. It's a completely normal response. Again, my only caution is because we've been disconnected for a while, take your time going back out. Don't just get into something because you've been without it for so long or without something for so long.
I think a lot of people are going to come busting out as the weather warms up. Once they get those vaccines, they're going to be like,
I'm doing an episode next week called Hangry, like people who, because I read in a couple different studies that show like women and men have basically been practicing abstinence because they're not dating, or they didn't want to like be intimate with people because they didn't want to even kiss anybody because they didn't want to bring a virus back to loved ones and things like that. So they're all like, get it, hangry, like. So yeah, I'm just adding on to what you're saying about being out there.
That's
funny, Mindy. That's very funny. But I just think, I mean, for people who are looking to date, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said, Dr. Zuckerman. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there if that's what you want, And I know, like, we've talked about this a lot, Jenice. Unfortunately, people get disappointed and then they just be afraid to get back out there. Like, I'm never afraid. Me, I love love. I love the idea of being in love. I accept and embrace love. And I've been disappointed many times out there in the dating world and in relationships, but that does not stop me from knowing what it is that I want and what I know I deserve in a relationship. And I just, hopefully anyone watching, I can encourage you, if you've been heartbroken, hey, mend that heart, go back out there, because there's somebody out there who's going to treat you right. And you just got to always believe that. I'm a firm believer that there is somebody for everybody. We got 7 billion people on the planet. That one idiot who broke your heart, okay, literally does not deserve you. So go out there and go get who does. That's what I have to say about that.
And I think it starts too with just self-love, and feeling confident in yourself. And, this would be my advice to everyone listening post-COVID and before COVID and in COVID, is just, just take it one day at a time. Don't go on a date and think, oh my God, this is my potential wife or my potential like husband, or, I mean, maybe they are, but like right now they're not. So just like take them for what they are, as a friend and an experience. And even if it's not a fit, like for me, I like that dinner I mentioned, and I kind of made a joke about with that guy that wasn't a fit for me. I sat there, I have this podcast, so I was like, okay, so I'm going to use this time as research for my show. But even if I didn't have the podcast, I'd just look at it like I'm getting to know somebody. Like maybe he'll have a client for me, or maybe we'll have a friend in common, or I'll learn something, or you know what I'm saying? So it's just like one thing at a time instead of like rushing into something, no matter what, I think.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you have any advice?
Yeah, enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Like, dude, we got out of this. Go have fun with it. Don't take it so seriously. Just being around people, enjoy kissing and hugging and flirting again and being face to face. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it again. Actually, I never got rid of it, but it's just like now it's even more like awesome. So
don't be hangry.
Yeah, I mean, we're not out of the woods even with the vaccination. At least that's my opinion.
It's
so
true.
What do we do? We become hermits. We don't live our lives. We don't enjoy ourselves. Yeah. We have to. I mean, we only have to look. I just celebrated my birthday April 6th, okay? And I celebrated it like really big. I got on a plane. I went down to Florida. I hung out on the beach. I met up with some people that I know. I had a great time, and I was very making sure, of course, I was safe. I had my mask. I washed my hands. I kept distance from people. And but again, we have to live, because we only have this one life to live. And that's, if I can encourage anyone again to do, is to understand, yes, take this thing very seriously. I've lost very dear friends. I mean, Jenice, you did a whole story on my childhood friend who died and his mother, However, I cannot allow those circumstances to stop me from living my life, because guess what? What if something happens to me tomorrow and I didn't go out there and go do, what I wanted to do with my life with someone, right? So, if you want it, you just got to go get it. You just got to go get it.
You bring up a good point, because you can't really get that year back.
No, we can't get
this time back. You can't. So you got to make the best of it. And one thing that this year has taught me, like I was this girl who every party I was invited to, I went. Every party, every event, I was there. This year, for the first time in my life, since I was probably a baby, I stayed home. I didn't think I could do it. But you know what? I did. And I started looking around and I said, it's not so bad here. maybe I should put some paint on the walls and settle in a little bit and just relax and enjoy home. So that's one thing that I've learned during the pandemic. How about you? What kind of lessons have you learned?
You said lessons learned?
Lessons learned, yes.
Well, see, and you worked in an office. I've always worked for myself and I always worked from home. So this was actually no transition in my lifestyle. This was already my lifestyle being at home, And I'm like,
My
wow,
husband's too.
yeah, I was like, for once, somebody actually understands my life, because before it used to be like, well, do you even work? And what do you do? And you seem to have like, no, I work from home, So, but the lessons I think I've learned, again, sometimes I'll tell you this. I used to feel guilty when people would ask me, well, how are you doing? And I say, I'm great. And it's like, well, how are you great when all this chaos is going on or how all these things are happening around you? And again, those things, with or without this pandemic, there's always going to be something negative that's always around us. There's always going to be something that's trying to get in our way, right? But for me, I think it's because I'm so focused and so disciplined already, and I've been trained to be that way, that this right here is just like, what's happening again? Again, it's not that I'm not aware. It's just the fact that I choose not to dwell on what's negative as opposed to focus on what's positive. Because if I don't, I'm going to fall apart. And if I fall apart, I'm not going to be able to live, right? So being an entrepreneur, running multiple businesses and also too involved in real estate, it's like I got to stay the course in what it is that I have to do to maintain and live. I just hope that I can inspire someone else to be able to do the same.
Anyone else want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'll go next. It's interesting. I agree with you, but I almost take like a different angle to that. So one of the things that came up a lot for me working with people was this idea of toxic positivity, which was this idea that, like, I don't think I can curse, but like crap's really bad right now, right? Like there's a lot of stuff going on. This last year was just, there was a lot of stuff going on. And I think one of the things that happened with people was that they thought they were supposed to only focus on the positives, right? Because focusing on something negative was bad and it made them in some way weak, or it made them depressed when it didn't. So it's this idea of being positive also means understanding that it's also okay to feel crappy every now and then. You don't always have to feel so butterflies and rainbows because it's unrealistic. So I think I agree with you completely. And I think what you're saying, you have to stay the course, involves when things come your way, handling them, dealing with it, and and dealing with it for what it says it is, for what it really is, and not feeling the need to always just, act as if nothing's wrong, because that just didn't make sense this year. And in general, it doesn't make sense. And it's okay to not be okay. It doesn't mean you're going to stay not okay. And in fact, you'll probably be okay sooner. So that's one of the lessons that I think I've learned this year. I know it's something that I worked a lot with my patients on, and something that I'm sure I'll carry through going forward. So I agree with you on that.
And I understand everything you're saying, Dr. Zuckerman, because you're right. Again, I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying, because yes, even though I like to focus on what's positive, that doesn't mean I am always positive. That doesn't mean I don't get sad. It doesn't mean that, again, I lost people who I love. You think I was sitting there like, oh yeah, okay, well they died and let's be happy now. Absolutely not.
Correct.
So, but the thing is that I guess I'm just fortunate and thankful that I do have the strength to go through what I'm going through. And I always tell people, when you're going through
hard,
keep going, because if
it's hard.
Stuck in that hell, because we've been in hell. I mean, that's true. We're all been in hell. None of us have not experienced this hell. But I just personally choose not to stay there. And to me, it is, for me, it's a choice. It's a choice. Either I'm going to stay here or I'm going to find a way to come out of it. I've experienced depression. I've experienced anxiety. I've experienced all that. And it's very hard.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. However, again, I just look, through the grace of God, and I don't want to get all biblical on everybody here, but I am a believer. I'm a Christian, and I have my faith that I attach to for me to help me get through those challenging times.
But you're a survivor. If I may go, I just wanted to share that I've learned from this time to say no, to protect my peace. I found, that I've taken on a lot more responsibilities, running a business and being associates and writing a second book and like all these like personal work projects, and then having my children home with me. Oh God. School, and then not having like some help with the house stuff because I worked so much that we couldn't have that, and so taking on those additional responsibilities and whatever. It's just very, very overwhelming to say the least. So I've learned how to kind of say no to things that aren't, kind of like look at what's a priority for me, and not say yes to everything that I once did, whether it be a work situation or a family commitment or whatever it may be, even friend things I've said no to and feel okay about that. And then I've also started meditating and taking a little bit more care of my mental health that I never did before, because I honestly felt at one point like, I wasn't depressed or anything. Not that there was anything wrong to be depressed, but I was very anxious, a lot of anxiety, I guess. And I felt like I was getting to a breaking point because of, one person, like we all are, everyone is just one person, as we hope. So whatever. I think that just taking it one day at a time and learning to say no and making sure you stay grounded is something that I have learned. And I'm planning to take with me through the rest of my life.
I love that. I agree with that. I love it. I love it, Mindie. I love it. Yeah. And
Just
congratulations on your new book.
You don't have to be a to be a boss.
Congratulations to everybody. Everybody's doing interesting, fabulous things.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything about what you learned?
To it.
Do you want to add anything about what you've learned? This has been a heck of a year. We've been talking about the pandemic, but we've had other things going on as well with all the racial unrest, with the protests, and it's just been a rough year all along, but an opportunity to learn. And I just wondered if you wanted to add anything about what something you might have learned.
I learned to value where I put my attention, like where I put my time, kind of like what people are saying, especially with friends. Or I learned like the difference between friends and acquaintances, and then even deeper of like who were friends and acquaintances who didn't serve, instead they were takers. So like there's a lot of people who are just energy suckers, and people who are just looking for what benefits they could get from the next person. And I learned to value myself and not be around those people anymore. And same thing with dating. It was like, in the past, I would just let a girl be 2 hours late or an hour and a half late and not say anything. But this time, like I stood up for myself and said, no, it's messed up. It's like you think your time's more important. And that was just like a big growth point in my life, because no matter how attracted I was to her, which I was very attracted and I liked her, it's like, this isn't going to work long term. And so I cut that off. So I valued my time and didn't give her any more attention, all of that stuff. And same with everything that's going on right now. It's like, I do value my time and my mental health. So I choose also not to let my social media and my attentions overwhelm me with all of the hate that's going on too. Like, I'm aware of it. I know what's going on, but I don't give my full attention to it. So it absorbs me, and then I start becoming very toxic and very negative. But then I take my time and step aside from it to reflect on it, so I can have like something really important or something well thought to say instead of just reacting to it right away. So that's what another thing is, like I value my time that way too. So I learned to also just sit a little bit and not react, but to like respond and to use my time like that. So the lessons of time have just been really important for me in this pandemic.
I'll add to that too. One of the things, and I always say this, the power is in the pause. That moment you take, that second you take before you react to something is so important, and that's where all the change takes place, in that pause. And the other thing, as far as what you bring your attention to and seeing people in a different light, knowing the difference between friends and good friends and acquaintances and the takers and the givers, that became extremely apparent during this last year, because again, we were limited in where we could go and all the distractions of everyday life. weren't really there as much. And so a lot of characteristics started showing a lot more than they normally would have. So I've definitely seen that a lot too.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything became transparent in a sense, like what you're saying, Dr. Zuckerman. Just like, you know, you instantly just kind of see people for who they are, because you ever know, for me personally, like in a crisis, that's, to me, like that tests a person's true character. No matter who you are, whenever you're in a crisis, it really will test a person's character. At least that's what I believe, because it's like how you handle a crisis sometimes is how you somewhat can handle anything, because it's like, okay, well, you know, what are we going to do about it? You can't, again, you can control what you can control, but you can't control everything, right? So,
Right.
you know, and in this pandemic, another thing I must add, it was nothing any of us can do about it. We cannot
Right.
control this thing. We can't control any of it. Again, this is why it's just like, okay, well, we can't control what's happening here, but only thing we can control is what's happening with ourselves. And
That's right.
that we make, and especially, like I said, the choices that we make with the people that we date and the people that we let into our lives, and how quickly we're going to let them into our lives, like we talked
Right.
about, and also too,
Sorry to interrupt you.
them because they don't belong in our lives, right?
Hey, absolutely. I'm sorry to cut you off, Angelita.
No.
Those are such great thoughts you're sharing, but I'm getting the time's up cue that we've got to let this go. And hopefully maybe we can do this again sometime. You know, get together via Zoom and talk again. And so thank you all for taking the time to do this. Thank you so much, Kevin, for dialing in from LA. Keep doing the fantastic work. It's great to see your star going all the way to the top, which is where it belongs. It's fun to watch. Thank you so much. Mindie Barnett, congratulations on the completion of your second book.
Thank you.
That's a huge thing that you've done while running a business and raising a family. And to you, Miss Angelita Byrd, congratulations on reopening this chapter of your life. I'm talking about the real estate. You've passed a big hurdle. I hope you had a great birthday. I won't say which one.
Hey, you know, listen, I'm proud of my age.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna let you be the one to announce it, and I won't be the one. And thank you, Dr. Zuckerman, for being part of this discussion too, and adding a bit of gravitas and helping us put everything into perspective. All right, so we're gonna sign off about now. So thank you all, and let's all follow each other so we can stay in touch. All righty.
Thank you, Dr.
All right,
Thank you.